and I use myself. I'm very outgoing, very public facing, but my wife will tell you when I come home, you won't hear a peep out of me. I'm in my office, I'm in my own little world, quiet as a church mouse.
Welcome to MetaGagement, the HR show that dives deep into the heart of employee engagement and workplace culture. Your hosts, Ann Scottlin and Dr. Lyman Montgomery, bring you a groundbreaking show that explores innovative strategies and insights to transform and elevate your organization's HR practices. Dr. Montgomery is an employee engagement expert and best-selling author, while Ann Scottlin is an acclaimed business consultant and podcaster. Together, they will unpack the complexities of modern HR challenges and reveal innovative solutions that can be immediately applied to your workplace. Please welcome Ann Scottlin and Dr. Lyman Montgomery.
Hello and welcome back to MetaGagement-HR. How are you, my friend? Hello, Mr. Dr. Lyman Montgomery.
Absolutely. I'm doing great. How are you doing, Ann?
I am good. Just talking right over you from the very beginning. Look at me go. Oh, goodness gracious. Well, I am glad we're all here together. I know you've been doing some traveling and so have I. So glad we are back. And I'm really excited about what we're bringing to you today. But first, I just want to remind you, in case you're new to the show, and I hope you are, or I hope that someone you have shot our link is checking us out for the first time. So MetaGagement-HR is a show that is completely committed to HR. And I think that's part of what makes it very special, a video podcast for HR. And our purpose is really to foster resilience and adaptability. One of our areas of expertise is DEI and assessments that we have created ourselves, which we're going to introduce some of that to you today. And our mission is really just to commit to elevating you as an HR professional by helping you elevate your team, your people, your company. We want everyone to win, and we think we can have fun doing it. So that's what we have created this show for, right, Lyman?
Yeah, one of the things that we really pride ourselves is not just having fun, but also making sure that we deposit real life examples and situations that you can glean strategies from and also apply them.
Yeah, absolutely. If it's not practical, then it's not of use. But what we bring to it also is a huge part of the mindset part, which is where this came from originally, which was our Meta Mindset program. That's where MetaGagement came from. And really helping people use science, technology of the mind to make this different. How is that, Lyman?
Part of making this different is out of the box thinking, looking at what have we've always done, but how can we do things differently? How can we expand? How can we go deeper to get the results that we desire? Oftentimes people will say, well, I wish I could do X, Y, Z, but they really don't internalize it from the standpoint of what are we currently doing and is it working? And if it's not working, what are the 1, 2, or 3 things that we can do to make it better? And sometimes the best ideas are the most craziest ideas. It is that meta to go above, to go beyond, the out of the box thinking, the unconventional way of doing things that makes it meta.
Absolutely. Going above, going beyond, just like you said, and going above and beyond the old way of doing things. And, that old way could be from the 1950s, or it could literally be from last year. It could be pre-COVID. We have to realize that we're always in a changing space, a changing environment, not just within our industry and our company, but within the community and the world at large. So how are we staying current, and how can we do that the best way? Using mindset, using neuroscience. So that's the real purpose of this show, is to bring you answers of things you really need to know. And with that in mind, please leave your questions and comments for us today, because we would love to address your comments and concerns specifically. So we love our viewers and listeners. Please reach out to us. So Lyman, this new series that we're starting, this 5-part series, is The 5 persona types architecture. Introduce that for our viewers a little bit.
Yeah, about a year or so ago, we got together and based on our years of experience and interviewing literally thousands of individuals all over the world, we noticed there were 5 persona types that would emerge, especially in group dynamics. And we looked at these and we said, what is it about an organization or a team that makes the team dynamic, makes the team effective, makes a team efficient? And we identify what we call 5 personas based on the research, based on the interviews, based on the information that we collected over many, many years. And we just sort of put it together into an assessment, and we call that assessment the 5 persona type architecture. And this is very, very important. I'm excited about it that we get to break down a 5-part series. And today we're going to talk about one of those, and that is the cheerleader persona.
Oh gosh, did you see what I just did? I'm not keeping any secrets here, am I? I just gave myself away without even meaning to. I'm like, well, I won't let it make you all guess what I am right now, or one of my top areas, top personas. But this is really fun. And just before we go into the Fearless Cheerleader, which of course is a very fun one for me, let's just talk about how this works practically. So
Yeah.
I realize how when you are building a team from the bottom up, which we often have the opportunity to do in different projects that are being created, we can create a new team from scratch, pulling from the resources within our company. And I understand how that can be super useful if you're bringing in the 5 persona types to make it an extraordinary, effective, and successful team. What if we already have teams and we're looking at these persona types saying, yeah, gosh, I've got like 4 chess players and 1 chemist, and we're just drowning here.
Hmm. Yeah. And this is why this assessment is very, very powerful, is because it allows you to look at the current makeup of your team and what you need to include or even exclude. For example, if you have a team full of commanders, these are high functioning individuals. They tend to have somewhat of a commanding presence. They if they're not careful, they will take over a meeting. They don't care about a lot of small talk. These are the ones that say, let's get to the point. I don't have a lot of time. If you have a team, let's say of 5, and 4 of them are commanders, and you're wondering why you're butting heads, it's because there's not a buffer between the commanders to soften. There's not a bridge builder. There's not a relationship builder. There's not someone to say, let's look at this. And so each of the 5 personas are very effective in making sure you have a well-oiled machine. And if that machine is moving in the right direction, everyone understands their role, their place, and their job. And it limits a lot of butting heads against each other.
Yes, and it's unbelievable. You and I have both worked in teams where we saw these 5 personas come together, and it's really incredible how many small issues are suddenly disappear or easily overlooked by once everyone has a very specific role to play.
Yes.
And the last question I want to have Lyman explain for our viewers today is what makes this architecture, this kind of the 5 persona assessment, what makes it different from the many, 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 many other assessments that your company may have already done?
Yeah. What makes this stands out and different is that it's based on not just neuroscience, not just it's the persona. Whereas if you look at some of the other type of personality type assessments, a person may tend to feel like they can only be one. This is how you present yourself in the workplace. That's why we call it a persona. For example, you may have a person, let's take an entertainer, and I use Michael Jackson as an example. Many people thought Michael Jackson was an extrovert because they saw him on stage. But if you talk to him, he was very shy. He was actually an introvert. But the persona that he displayed in public was totally different than who he was in private. And so a lot of times, this assessment is about how do you show up in the workplace. And so you may have a person show up as a cheerleader in the workplace, but they feel like they need to be the motivator, the inspirational leader, getting everybody on board, always seeing the good. But in their private life, they may be a chess player where they're very analytical and they're always thinking 5 moves ahead. They're worrying about the future outcome. And so it's not stuck in one persona because it is how you present yourself. How do you show up in the workplace that makes this different than, let's say, some of the other? And it's not fixed. You may move in and out of different personas. Now, there's a dominant persona, but you may move in and out of different personas based on the situation, based on the circumstances. And so it's not a fix. So it's not like, well, I'm always a cheerleader. No, there are times where you may be the cheerleader due to necessity, but the core of you might be that of a construction builder where you're really more concerned about building strong relationships.
And this is, this overflows into real life as well. I just want to
Yes.
insert this here because we always have fun with talking about, what's happening in the office, what's happening on the clock, and what's happening off the
Yes.
clock. We just recently, as you may have many of you know, we just recently had a national holiday. And because of that, I saw so many of these personalities coming out, these types, just in a family unit. Like everyone's planning to go to the lake and they've packed a picnic and they're going to go do some water sports. They're going to have fun. They're going to listen to the music. They're going to have some beverage of choice. And we have someone who's so excited they can hardly stand to get out the door. Well, then we have the commander who's like, slow down. We need to plan. We need to do this right if we're going to do it, which sounds like such a party pooper, right? And then a chess player who's like, well, but we have to buy the ice before we get the cooler, or do we buy the ice after we get the cooler? Like there's always something like this must come before this. This is strategic.
Right.
Everything's strategic. So those are just a couple examples of, just watching in your own family, your friends, the people around you. You can always be playing with this in your mind, even if you're not in the office.
Exactly. And then you have the chemist that's like, well, now cousin Joy can't sit next to cousin Mark because their personalities don't mix. And so the chemist is always looking at the interchemistry between those that are in the room. And all of us have seen that happen where, think about when you were young, my brother and I, my mother would always have to separate us because we would be picking with each other, nagging each other. And she would say, okay, Lyman, you go sit over there. Like Martin, you go over there. Or they would put my sister in between us, as again, that buffer.
No, so true. And our construction workers, which is this the person building the sandwiches or packing the car? Who is this person?
Yeah, exactly. The construction worker always, they're like busybodies. This is the person you see at the family reunion. They're making sure everyone has drinks. They're making sure that the grill has food on it. They're relational. They're about making sure everyone is doing what they need to be doing. And their focus is really on relationships. Are you good? You're good? Okay. And they're also very good at identifying potential problems before it happens. And the problem sometimes with the construction worker, and we're going to get into this later on, is they're the ones that will roll up their sleeves and they're the ones that will cook the food, do the dishes, take out the trash, and they don't sit down and enjoy themselves.
Oh, yeah. My mom is one of those. She's a construction worker. I cannot outwork her, and I'm a pretty hard worker. Like I just
Yes.
watch her, and she wears me out, and I'm like, how can you be that much older than me and just be like
Oh
a
yeah.
bee in a hive? Like she just, but it's kind of her joy, and I think what I love most about this is, well, each of these persona types has tendencies, often habits and skills. Um, the deepest and most important part of each persona in this particular assessment, which makes it a little different, is specifically their relationships, how they deal with relationships to each other and to the general public, whether that's the vendors, whether that's the clients, whoever that is. How are they at relationships? And that is so
Yes.
critical to having a successful outcome. Well, we're going to take a really quick break here, and then we're going to dive off the high dive straight into more detail about the cheerleader persona. So if you haven't already, please like and subscribe and leave us a comment. We would love to hear from you. As always, we love answering your questions and comments on the show. And share this link with someone who you think might enjoy it. Just, copy, paste it, pop it in a text or an email or a LinkedIn message and just shoot it off to them so they can join us too. We would love that. All right, we're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back.
Are you ready to elevate your team and organizational effectiveness? Dive into the focused Meta Mindset 5 Persona Types Architecture Assessment and discover your unique superpower as a leader or team member. Whether you're a fearless cheerleader, diligent construction worker, calculating chess player, commanding commander, or analytical chemist, this journey of self-discovery will highlight your strengths, sharpen your focus, and propel you towards success. This isn't just a quiz, it's your pathway to unlocking and embracing the potential that will transform your organization. Ready to find out your persona type? Head over to MetaGagement.com to take the assessment now.
Welcome back again to MetaGagement-HR, the show that was completely and utterly designed just for you, for the HR industry, for the HR professional. And today we're talking about the 5 persona types in our MetaGagement assessment. And we did a quick overview already. And what we're going to start with now is the fearless cheerleader. So I know one thing that, what's the problem that the fearless cheerleader can help solve? Well, I'll answer that since I have a little bit of a cheerleader in me. If a project team feels overwhelmed, everyone's demoralized because there's a tight deadline, there's a recent setback, so productivity is dropped. And the team members need more confidence in their ability to meet the deadline. So everyone is just feeling really low. Well, this is maybe the most obvious example of the cheerleader persona, right? Which is lifting their spirits. And what the difference is about the cheerleader as opposed to, let's say, the commander trying to lift people's spirits, is that the commander, even if he puts on this acting guise that he's going to be the cheerleader, he's not going to come off as genuine.
No.
People are going to feel like he's forcing it. It's not going to feel authentic. A real cheerleader does this as a genuine joy for them. They genuinely come in and smile and, slap people on the back and bring them, bring them something to cheer them up. They bring a cake on a dark day. They remind people how good they are at their jobs. And it's not, they're not a failure because this is a huge issue that we're dealing with, a huge problem. This is about empowering them to tackle the deadline because the cheerleader really believes truly, and that's why we all have the balance. The cheerleader really believes in an optimistic outcome and they see the positive things happening. Isn't that right?
All the time. That the cheerleader is that person, going back to your example of the contrast between the commander. The cheerleader will say, hey, I know we didn't reach our goal, but guess what? If we put our heads together and maybe we just need to take a moment and just breathe and let's go outside, reconnect with the earth. The commander be like, listen, we didn't hit our goals. We need to get it together. And it can come across almost like the commander is forcing you to get it together. Whereas the cheerleader wants to inspire you to say, don't think about winning or losing, but what did you learn? And for them,
even
that's the key. Yes.
what did you enjoy about the journey, and what were the good things that came out of it?
That's a
You know,
good point.
it was always challenging to be, not that I never actually was a cheerleader, as you know, Lyman. People often
Mhm.
accuse me of that now. I wish I had, but I was still living in an extraordinarily conservative environment, and a story for
Right.
another day. For those of you who know me, grew up in a very conservative sort of cult-like environment where none of that was allowed. But my father was very much a commander personality. So
Mm-hmm.
it was challenging for the two of us to, kind of coordinate and find a common ground, because his was just, if we force everyone, they'll do it. And I'm like, no, if you inspire everyone and give them incentive, they'll do it.
There
And
you
and
go.
look how the outcome is just different. But the other
Just
really
different.
important thing about all of these personas is, of course, that they're absolutely essential. So if the cheerleader were in charge of everything from the mission to the bottom line, all the way around, we would just have a party every day. Everyone would have a blast at work, and the company would close because they had no money.
Yeah, but there'd be no hard deadlines.
We know
And
deadlines. That's right.
yeah, be no
We
hard
know,
right.
like, let's do it when it feels good to you.
Right. Um,
Um,
on the other
so
hand, on the other hand, the power of the cheerleader is to infuse that team with the possibility of optimism,
Mhm.
to get the team to reimagine again. And that is so powerful. Can think about this. If you look at any sports team, even when you're down, the cheerleader's job is to motivate and to inspire the fans. Come on, I know we're down, but that's okay. If we all put our collective energies together, we can come back, we can win, we can do it. Yay!
And this is
Now,
actually a
what
vital part of a successful team.
if it is? What if the cheerleader's like, okay, we're down 20 points. You know what? We suck. Y'all go home. We done lost. Boy, that's not a good cheerleader, okay, or a cheerleading team. And so when you think about in your organization, let's say even if it's a DEI plan, an HR rollout, you want to make sure that you celebrate, have a party, but also get down to work. And that's what we're all about is yes, we want to have you inspired, motivated, but it still comes down to work. It doesn't mean that the cheerleader isn't about getting work done. The cheerleader is about how do we do the work so that it's engaging, that it's fun, and that there's a purpose for doing the work. That's
Well,
really the hidden power of the cheerleader.
that is, that is part of the key is people matching their personas to the work they need to do. It is so easy. I love my job when I'm playing the cheerleader. It is so
Mm-hmm.
easy. It's effortless. It's fun. It actually gives me energy motivating other people. Other personas will be like, oh my God, motivating people is like just rake me over the coals,
Yeah.
awful, right? Like,
Yeah.
no, it's what I'm already really excellent at, what I'm really good at, and it's fun. So
Yeah.
that's what we mean when we say, finding ways to go meta is making the job more fun, not because you have to be a cheerleader, but because you are allowed to express your talents and skills that really reflect your persona in the
Mm-hmm.
team.
And you see this also. What was the movie with a Braveheart? Okay,
Oh, yeah, Mel Gibson.
where Mel Gibson is a warrior, a commander, but he also knows when he needs to be the cheerleader. And you see
Mm.
that famous scene of where you talk about cry freedom, where he's on his horse and he's going up and down, and he's in, and they feel like they're defeated, they're overwhelmed, and he inspires them, he energizes them to let them know that even if we die, we will die free and to cry freedom. And all of a sudden they buy into this. Even though he's a warrior, even though he's a commander, he also understands that there's a time to be the cheerleader, to inspire and to motivate the troops before they go into battle.
Yes, and this is kind of like, wearing different hats. So there's kind of the
That's
authentic
good.
persona type, which is what comes naturally to the individual with their talents and experience and personality. But sometimes the hats can be interchanged. Now that works best when someone on the team isn't there and someone else has to step in and just wear their hat for the day or take on some of their responsibilities, like motivating the team. Where we see struggles and interpersonal issues start rising is when all the hats are mixed up on the wrong heads. When on an
That's good.
ongoing basis, the cheerleader is trying to wear the commander hat, and the chess player is trying to wear the construction worker hat, and the commander tells the chemist that he has to be a chemist, but he has to also be a cheerleader. I mean, it's not that people can't do their best, but it's not maximum performance, and it's not done with ease. So we don't always say make it easier. We say, how can we make HR and our experience of our teams and companies filled with more ease?
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Um, you also will see where all of us have a dominant persona, like I said,
Mhm.
that will show up in the workplace. And then you will see almost the complete opposite of that in their private life. Um, and I use myself. I'm very outgoing, very public facing, but my wife will tell you when I come home, you won't hear a peep out of me. I'm in my office, I'm in my own little world, quiet as a church mouse. And it's because in public, yes, that's my persona, an extrovert, but then I also enjoy the introspection and reflectiveness of
Mhm.
being able to think and be the chemist and create new things and look at how things mix and don't mix. And that's really my superpower, is being able to say, so you think I'm this, but I'm really that.
I love that. And I think that's always fun in general. And
Yes.
yes, very much true. A lot of the high energy personalities, whether that's cheerleader or whatever that is, um, when being around people naturally energizes them chemically,
Hmm.
basically. There's a natural change in the brain's chemistry that gives them more and more energy. But sometimes they expend more energy than they actually had
Yes.
stored up, but it happens spontaneously and naturally. That's why you'll see often that really positive cheerleader person, sometimes they'll crash, or like you said, they'll
Hmm.
go home. And I also isolate quite a bit at home because for me, it's about recovery. It's kind of like if
That's
I
good.
have an amazing cheerleader day, which is just in my power, I have to go home and meditate and be in quiet. And like sometimes I can't even stand the TV being on in my poor family
Yes.
because I'm like, can you
Yes.
wear headphones?
Yeah.
Because I'm like, I just can't do any more noise, any more people. Now, it's not always all that way, but it's an example of, and we'll be doing this with each of the 5 personas as we move through this
That's true.
series. It's
And
how they rebuild.
yes, and you see this also with people, let's say in law enforcement, military, that will, in their persona as a commander, they're leading troops, they're in life and death situation, and then when they get home, they're like, "This is the biggest teddy bear."
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
mean, and it's just almost like it's the complete opposite of how they present themselves to the world. And I think
Mhm.
part of that, what you're saying, they need to re-energize. And so you have someone that has a highly stressful job where they're always in the lead, and then
Mhm.
they come home and do laundry and do dishes
Mhm. Mhm.
because they don't want to make another critical decision, because for them, that's part of giving them that break that they need.
And this is partly about conserving your persona and knowing how and when to
That's
use it.
good. Yes.
Right? Because that's when you're at work, if that's your family's relying on that income and you're relying on it to progress your career, that is a place where you're going to have to save a certain kind of energy to use it. When you're at
Hmm.
home with your kids, being a teddy bear is a great thing. I mean, how much better to be a great dad or a great mom? So finding the time, I think when people hit frustration is when they try to keep the same tenor all the time. Um,
That's
because
true.
if my dad was a commander at work but he came home and he just stayed the commander, he was inaccessible and there was a lot of stress within the family. So knowing how to balance your strengths and not letting that completely define you, but realizing that instead of defining you, it empowers you to turn that switch on or off at the times that are matter most.
Yeah. And my dad worked construction. Okay. And he would be so tired when he came home. Guess how many construction projects he had at home that never got completed? A bunch of them.
That's like the plumber and the dishwasher, and he
Yes.
never ever fixes it because he comes out and he's
To
like,
this
I'm not
day.
fixing one more thing.
Yes, to this day, if you go to my mom's house where he was working on the plumbing and was tired of something and switched the cold water line with the hot water line, to this day it's still switched.
No way. That's amazing. That's amazing. That's such a good case in point. Well, our time has flown. We're going to have to wrap up already, but we hope you really enjoyed. I enjoyed talking about persona type number 1, the fearless cheerleader, and share just very briefly, Lyman, how the assessment works and how people can get access to it.
Yeah, all you need to do is go to our website, MetaGagement.com. There is a link at the top that says assessment. Click on the assessment. It takes about 7 to 10 minutes to complete. And it only, tells you what your persona, but it's a nice little video and tells you why you scored this. And it's all based in science. It's fun. It's free. It doesn't cost you a dime to take the assessment. And we strongly recommend that you take the assessment to find out which of the 5 you identify with and how you show up. And so the biggest thing is also celebrate the small wins and your progress. Regardless of how you show up, it's very important that you celebrate your wins.
Absolutely. Super important. And in that, the cheerleader is always right. Oh, did I say that?
Yes.
I did. Listen to your cheerleader. They do have valid points. So, and also just taking each of the personas seriously, because happen to be blonde, happen to be cheerleader personality. I mean, on and on it goes. We've talked about this in live events before. And old stereotypes can arise and say, oh, but this person is not as important as the commander or the construction worker or the chemist, when actually they are, and vice versa. So just really important. Well, I have some news for you all. Not only is this the first one of 5 consecutive episodes highlighting the assessment and the 5 personas, but we also have a brand new broadcast day and time based on your request. Fridays weren't the best day for you all. So we have made a formal switch. Today was the beginning, and it will continue, which is the new day is Tuesdays now. And that's at 11 Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific. That's 3 p.m. GMT. So if you can do the math based on wherever you are, join us for the live streaming on now Tuesdays. And we'll be changing that across our platforms. And super excited about that. And also, please reach out. Again, we love your comments and questions. We realized that somehow a setting got changed a while back where the comments were off on some of the platforms. We fixed that. And you can always reach us directly by email message, just by going to the website. Shoot us your question and comment there at metagagement.com. And please like and subscribe as well. Share this link. I'm Ann Scottlin. This is Dr. Lyman Montgomery. And thank you for joining us here today on MetaGagement-HR. We'll see you next time.
Take care.